Hey everyone, I'm Stephanie, and I believe that all readers should read children's literature, especially adults. So that's what we do on the Kid Lit Love podcast. We celebrate all things children's literature, picture books, early readers, middle grade, and young adult novels too. Whether you're an adult reading to your inner child or connecting the young readers in your lives with fantastic books, you've come to the right place. Each week, we'll talk to a different children's literature author and discuss their books, their hopes and dreams for readers, their writing process, and much, much more. So, grab a notebook to build your TBR, and let's get to today's episode of Kid Lit Love. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Kid Lit Love podcast. I'm Stephanie Affinito, your Kid Lit loving host, inviting you back for another bookish conversation with a children's literature author. This week, I'm talking with Christine Virnig. Christine is here to talk about her debut fiction middle grade novel, A Bite Above the Rest. In it, a boy moves to a Halloween-themed town only to realize there may be more to this tourist trap than meets the eye. Now, if you're listening to this episode in real time, then today is Halloween, and you know it is the perfect day to talk about a Halloween-themed book and have a Halloween bookish conversation. So let's get right to it. Christine, welcome to the Kid Lit Love podcast. I'm so glad you're here.
I'm so thrilled to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, absolutely. I always love meeting new to me authors. I always love getting a new book in my hands. And I really love when we can time the book and the release and the launch with something really wonderful in the calendar. So it is just bookish serendipity that we are here on Halloween talking about a book that has such a beautiful, strong Halloween theme in it. But before we get to the book, I would love for you to talk about you. Did a little poking around on your website, learn a little bit about you, and you're a former physician turned
Correct.
children's literature author. And so I want to know about that. I want to know about that journey of how you came to be here today from where you started.
Yeah, so like you said, I started writing about maybe 15 years ago, right around the time that I got my first job as a doctor after finishing medical school and residency and fellowship. And at first, writing was more of just a way for me to deal with the stresses that came along with the job in medicine. Um, and I'd write super sporadically. I might go days, weeks, even months without writing a single word, and then I just pick it up again. And gradually over time, it just became more and more something that I did. I started taking it more seriously. I went to writing conferences, I joined critique groups, and I just got to the point where I realized that no, I really want to become a children's book author, and this is what I really love to do. Um, Up until that point, I had always been writing middle grade fiction, but I always struggled to come up with an idea that was unique enough or interesting enough that I thought anyone would want to read it. And so I actually switched gears to middle grade nonfiction. And it was actually nonfiction that landed me my agent and got me my first two book deals. And then after that, I pivoted towards to writing fiction once again.
So tell us about that first nonfiction, because I got to say the title's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it is pretty pretty interesting. Yeah, it's called Dung for Dinner, and it's a stomach churning look at the animal poop, pee, vomit, and secretions that people have eaten and often still do. So yeah, it's full of a buttload of history and medicine and gross facts. Yeah, so fun to write.
I mean, what middle grade reader would not be clamoring for that book to get that in their hands? I love that. I thought I cannot let you get on this podcast without mentioning your first your first titles.
Yeah, my second one, it's kind of the same. Waist deep in dung, a stomach churning look at the grossest jobs throughout history. So I guess I have something about poop in me. I don't know.
Well, then I think you're in the right occupation, writing for children. So
Yeah.
you found your niche.
Yes.
Now, we're here today to talk about your fiction debut. So, another middle grade novel, A Bite Above the Rest. I already previewed a little bit of it in the opening. It is clearly a Halloween themed book,
Mhm.
a whole culture of Halloween, if you will, with some really neat spooky vibes in there. So I would love for you to tell us in your words about that book. No spoilers, of course, but give everyone the overview of what they could expect if they were to pick this book up.
Yeah, so A Bite Above the Rest is about Caleb, who's an 11-year-old who moves across the country to a tourist town where it's Halloween 24/7. So people wear costumes every day. There are decorations up all year round. The town hall keeps vampire hours of all things. But pretty quickly after moving there, Caleb begins to suspect that there might be more to the town than meets the eye, and that maybe the vampire mayor could be an actual vampire and his werewolf teacher could be an actual werewolf. And so he and his new quirky best friend, Ty, set out to investigate and discover the truth.
Yeah. I mean, what kid wouldn't want to imagine, right, that their teacher is
Right,
is
right.
a vampire? There's so much middle grade wonderfulness to love in this book, but I've gotta ask the obvious question before we jump into the book, which is, have you always loved Halloween? Is this your holiday, your jam, your theme? Like, where did this idea to embrace Halloween so carefully in this book come from?
Well, actually, and I probably shouldn't admit this on the air, but I am actually not. I was not a huge Halloween fan growing up. So similar to my main character who comes into it thinking, what have I gotten myself into? These people are wearing costumes. I don't know that I like it. I was actually very much the same way. I always thought that. I mean, I love the candy. Like, don't get me wrong about that. But like costumes, I always felt awkward, and I always felt like everyone was looking at me. I just, for some reason, instead of it being like a mask. Like I felt the opposite. And so I was never a big fan of the holiday. Um, and so of course I threw my main character right into that situation because, we love to be mean to our main characters.
Well, I'm gonna say I was not expecting that answer because the level of Halloweenness in this location, from the descriptions to the history we learn about the people in it, like this is an all-in Halloween book, and I thought for sure you must have been the kind of kid who was obsessed with this holiday, and so I am definitely a little surprised because my goodness, I love Halloween for the candy. I love
Mhm.
it to watch the excitement of the kids, but it really wasn't my favorite holiday because I don't like to be spooked. I don't like
Okay.
scary things.
Mhm.
I've gotta say, reading your book, I was like, "Okay, I'm in. I could go here. I would figure this out." And I don't know if you've watched I don't know how old it is now, to be honest with you. I may be dating myself, but I watched it when my kids were little. It was a series of movies, or maybe it was a series, called Halloween Town. Do you know that?
So I didn't watch it until well after I'd written my book. And then someone's like, "Oh, this reminds me of Halloween Town." And then I thought, "Oh, I should probably watch Halloween Town." So I did watch one of them well after I wrote this. But
Okay,
yeah.
well, for the record, your book is better. Your book is
Thank you.
better than Halloween Town, but the thing that Halloween Town does is just wrap its arms around this holiday, and literally everything in those movies are Halloween, right? From the costumes to the decorations to the spirit to what's going on, and that's what's happening in your book. So when I first started reading the book, I thought, "Oh, cool, it's Halloween. The school's decorated, the kids are dressed up." And then I went, "Wait, no, no, it's the first day of school. What is going on?" So I love how I had to just be a little confused and shift and then wrap my brain around the idea that this tourist town literally is Halloween 24/7, from the daily costumes that people wear to the decorations on the porch to the vampire hours, right, of the town
Yeah.
hall and the courthouse. I loved how immersed you put the reader, and you gave that little bit of unexpected for me of, "Oh, okay, this is all the time." I just
Yeah.
loved that. I loved that you kinda flipped me upside down in the opening section of the book.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was fun. I think I'm one of those people who doesn't visualize things very well. Like if I try and picture something, I struggle with it. So I think that's part of why this setting was so appealing because like, we've all seen Halloween decorations. We can all imagine it. And so it's something that I could really dive into very, easily, um, compared to say making up a whole new setting.
Yeah. Okay, but that's another thing that surprises me because one of the things I wanted to tell you in this episode was how amazing your descriptions and the language you used. I literally feel like I have that location in my brain forever.
Oh, I
From
love that.
yeah, from the decorations to the feel of it, but even more so, I think my favorite description that you have, it's on page, let's see, 43, and it's just going through the town. There's the pumpkin pie bakery. There's, all of these just wonderful themed places. So for you to say that that visualization was difficult, it just kind of floors me because I think it is the part of your book that just I just went all in because of those descriptions and observations.
Yeah, and I think and maybe the 2 go hand in hand. Like because I can't really see it, I need to like write it down on the paper, but yeah, like at the end, when we're talking about cover, for example, and they'd be like, "What do your main characters look like?" And it's like, I don't really know. Like I don't see them. So if I don't write it, then it's not really there. I don't know
Yes.
if that makes sense.
Wow, it does. It actually makes perfect sense, and it's why you're so good at it. Because that's how you're kind of picturing it. You're not picturing it in your mind, you have to picture it on the page first,
Exactly.
and thus
Yes.
readers get to benefit from that. Oh, I gotta tell you, I was getting hungry reading it too from the pumpkin pie, despite cupcakes and the scones and oh, I was in it. If readers are looking for a book with a strong sense of place and just a strong, immersive aspect, oh my gosh, you put us right there.
Oh, thank you so much.
Awesome. Now, let's talk about the characters because these are two kids that I think a lot of kids could relate to and just become friends with, fictional friends with, although
Yeah.
sometimes they feel like they are real life friends. We have Caleb, who is just moving to this new tourist attraction. His dad has passed away. He's starting over with his mom, who's trying to make a clean slate, and starting over without a dad also means in a new location with people that you don't know. How do you make friends? And oh, by the way, in a school and a town that is unlike anything he's ever known. And he has so many relatable traits, right? He's a little bit anxious, he's dealing with things. I think you've got readers that could identify with Caleb, but then you have Ty, who's this upbeat, boundless energy, even though Caleb can't figure out how and why she has it, because it looks like sometimes that she just buoys herself, which I loved. I just loved that about her. And you have this unlikely pair that comes together. So I think readers are going to find new friends in this book for sure.
Yeah, it was really fun to write them. I think I wrote like Caleb is me. He is like you said, he's very anxious, he's unsure of himself, he doesn't really know I don't know. He doesn't really know what's going on. And then there's Ty who's like how I wish I was be confident, she's hilarious, she's so outgoing, she's so sure of herself. And so yeah, they were kind of fun to put those two kids together and let them, they both I think together they're fabulous.
Yes, that's the part that I love. They each had something in the other that they needed or benefited
Yes.
from. And so this was a really great friendship where, one might be brave and the other might be anxious, but then the tables are turned and then the other one is there for each other. And they both have their own deeper things that they're going through, right?
Mhm.
While at the same time, just having this really cool, I don't know if I should say mystery or just this what the heck is going on in this town
Right.
and how are we going to uncover it kind of thing. These characters, yeah, they just are so relatable and so kid friendly. Like They're going to see themselves in this pages, whether you're a young kid or you're like me and you're a kid at heart who found pieces of her perhaps anxious self in the
Yeah.
pages as well.
Yeah, I think writing characters is definitely one of the funnest parts it's of writing and just, creating those people and they surprise you all the time as authors. They'll do something that, you didn't really expect them to do. And it's just so fun to discover who
Yeah.
exactly these people are.
Yeah.
So
And Caleb's funny. Caleb has a sense of humor with his choice of costumes. So, as I mentioned in the beginning, um, everybody dresses up in costume every single day, whether you are a young child or you are an adult. And Caleb is like, "What the heck, man?
yeah.
I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know if I like this." And he comes up with these costumes that he can live with that are just hysterical and tongue in cheek and punny. I think my favorites were one was the potato chip on or the chip on the shoulder one. I loved the very first one, which was the quarterback literally taping quarters from a game to his back. But also, actually, maybe this one's my favorite when he put the letter L on the bow
Oh,
tie, elbow. I love words, right? Anybody who's reading books are gonna love these costumes because it is such fun wordplay in
yeah.
these. And I thought, "Oh, okay, maybe I could do a Halloween costume this year." My son plays football. I have all intentions of putting quarters on my back,
Oh, yeah. You
you
should
know,
totally do
and
that.
just seeing what he does and if he
I think this year I'm gonna be a fork in the road, I think is what I'm gonna do. The little orange or the yellow tape on the middle of a black t-shirt and then stick a fork on there and that's yep, I think that's what
I
I'm gonna do.
love it. I love it. Those costumes really had me entertained. I was looking forward to seeseeing which ones were going to come in the book. Also in the book that I loved in terms of the format, because it is a narrative, but then you have these sections that kind of pop out that when Caleb and Ty are doing research, trying to figure out, well, they really have two things. They're doing a report together and they're trying to figure out the mystery of what's really happening in this town. And so you'll be reading, and all of a sudden you'll have these great pages that are from the internet or from their research on vampires, on witches, on werewolves. And I loved that. I loved that little interruption of the story to literally see what the characters were seeing and feel, read what they were reading. And so I'd love for you to talk about that. Did you know you wanted that in there? Is that something that just came as you were writing? Because I loved it.
I mean, it did come as I was writing, but I always love it when books have like illustrations or pictures or sections like that in them. I always, like you said, it's a fresh breath of fresh air. It's just it kind of breaks things up a little bit. And so as soon as the idea popped into my head, I was like, no, we need to do this. This is exactly what belongs here. And those were some of the funnest sections to write. And I did my own research and like I looked up these creatures and then I basically put what I found on the internet in there as if I was Caleb and Ty putting it together. So, yeah, those
I
are some of my favorite parts too, for sure.
Yeah, it really allowed me and it allowed readers to literally get in their heads of what they were reading and thinking. And it's in one of those, and I won't say what one because I don't want to spoil things, but it's in one of those where Caleb kind of has a aha moment of what could be going on with some of the residents in
Yeah.
this town. And I thought, oh, I love how that piece of research sparked what came next in
Mhm.
the narrative. And I think for some kids, this could, send them down a really cool rabbit hole of, oh, I want to look that up and I want to see what I find. I could see them going to Google or going to the next book or wherever they go to get their information and just following that trail of
I hope
curiosity.
so.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely think they will. I also think it's worth mentioning too, another thing that I love that was a breath of fresh air that I know kids are definitely going to relate to are the text messages. So talk
Mhm.
about those.
Yeah, it's always my I always want as an author to like put things in like 20 years ago, like before phones even became a thing and like not have to deal with technology and social media and text messages. Um, but it's there's such a need to have books that are timed currently. And so it's like, okay, most kids this age, or a lot of kids this age will have phones and they will be messaging each other. And so it was just a way to try and make it true to what would actually be going on if, there were a couple kids. My kids, they don't call their friends, they message their friends. And so it was kind of like, okay, well, what do people really do?
Yeah.
And so it's just a way to kind of make it seem more real and true to what would be going on now.
Yeah. I love when my teenagers will actually get a random phone call and they just kind of look at the phone like, what is happening? What do I do?
Exactly.
Do I answer it? Who is it? I'm like, you pick up. You pick up and you say hello.
Oh, you're nice. You pick up the phone. I do not at all.
It depends on the number that's flashing up, Christine. Now, I don't give spoilers, right? We already said we don't give spoilers, but I do just have to say the ending. The ending. I need to know. I need to know like what's happening next. You left with a nice full circle kind of ending and then you dropped something
Yes.
that made me think, okay, is there another book? Do I just have to figure it out myself? I love cliffhangers. I think you're going to leave a lot of readers wanting more and wondering what it is. So I just want to ask, is there another book in your mind planned or is this a let the reader tell the story and end with a oh my gosh, that was such a great book kind of feeling?
So it's definitely intended to be its own book with the possibility for a second book. And I do definitely have thoughts about a second book. I already have ideas. I would love to revisit that world again. But whether or not it will happen, that I don't know yet. It kind of depends on the world of publishing,
Yeah.
whether there is more or not. But yeah, but I'd love to revisit that world. I love Caleb and Ty, um, and in their town.
Yeah. Well, I wanna, like, manifest this. I wanna put this out into the world. I wanna raise my hand. I wanna be one of the first people to raise my hand and say, "I need a book too. I need a book too," because I loved being in this world as well.
Aw.
Like I said, the descriptions, the immersiveness of this book that surprised me not being a big Halloween person. I didn't wanna leave the world. I don't wanna leave Caleb and Ty. I just adored those 2 characters. And then with that little drop at the end, like, I need to know. I need it's not good enough for me to decide in my head, so that's it. I'm putting it out there, and hopefully, listeners, when you get this book and you read this book, you're going to know what I mean, and you need to, like, say that out loud too so that we can manifest a book too. That's all I'll say.
That's I would love it. I would love it.
So, can you give us a sneak peek into perhaps other things that you're working on that might come our way?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have 2 books in the works. One will probably come out in fall of 25. That is another middle grade nonfiction. The title is Phantom Academy, and it is about a ghost who attends a school for ghosts. And then I also have a picture book that will be coming out in summer of 27. So a long way away, but that is about a haunted house.
I'm noticing a theme
Yes, there is definitely a theme. It's either poop or it's spooky and haunted.
for Halloween.
Yeah, yeah. I got 2 flavors.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I think you've chosen well for the audience that you were writing for, and kids are just going to scoop up the books. I mean, they are truly, especially a bite above the rest. It was just an experience that I really enjoyed leaving my world and jumping into yours. It was
Oh,
so much fun.
thank you so much.
Welcome. So, where can listeners find out more about you, keep in touch so that they are updated as to those new books? Any places you'd like to share with them?
Yeah, so my website is christinevirnig.com. And so I update that periodically. And then I'm also on Instagram, and my it's at Virnig Christine is where you'll find me there. You can also find me probably on X, but I'm not active on X. You can probably find me on Threads, but I don't ever post on Threads. But so those are the main places where I'll actually do stuff.
So I will put links to the website and to your Instagram in the show notes. I'll of course put a link to A Bite Above the Rest, and I'll also link to those other books with the most fantastic title names ever.
Cook books. I just call them Dung One and Dung Two. That's
Yep.
that's what I call them.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you. Thank you for coming on to the podcast to talk about your books, to invite readers into this world that I know they're not going to want to leave like I did. Truly enjoyed it. I know listeners will too.
Oh, well, thank you so much. This was really fun.
You're welcome. So, listeners, thank you for listening to another episode of the Kidlit Love podcast, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for listening to today's episode of the Kidlit Love podcast. You'll find links to all the books, resources, and ideas mentioned in the show notes at alitlife.com. And if you want more, you might like to listen to my other podcast called Get Literate. It's a podcast that explores all things books and reading, notebooks and writing, and everything in between to build a life you love. One more thing. If you love what you listened to today, please take a moment to rate and review the podcast or take a screenshot of the episode and text it to a bookish friend. This helps the podcast grow and builds our bookish community of kid lit love. Thanks for listening.